Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrés Cano. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's live stream. I know that we have a big night tonight. There's a vice presidential debate, so we are going to have tonight's conversation be as brief as possible, and we promise to not get in the way of that exciting vice presidential debate. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have already a number of you saying that you were joining us tonight, and more than anything, this is an important day because early voting begins today. There were lines outside of Pima County voting stations this morning. People are really energized and fired up about what is happening in this election, and we've got 27 more days to go. Now, tonight's conversation is a VIP lineup, but before we introduce our guest tonight to discuss Proposition 208, I want us to take a little bit of ride down memory lane to be able to discuss why I ran for office, and that was to give back to our teachers and to our students here in Arizona who absolutely have gotten the short end of the stick at our legislature. We're going to play a quick video that is going to show you an ad that my campaign released in 2018. I find it pretty ironic that we are still discussing the same very issue today. We'll be right back.
We are tired of being last. Arizonans deserve better. Our kids deserve better. We need the governor, we need the legislature to make a serious financial commitment, and we can't talk about some other day today.
So I get the goosebumps watching that because it really was a historic time in our I would say our country, because there were a number of Red Fred movements happening throughout the nation, but ultimately here in our great state of Arizona. That, of course, was the height of 50,000 public education supporters coming to the state capitol saying enough is enough. We must have an investment in our public schools. And that was 2 years ago in 2018. Now, it's been a fun year since then, being able to serve you in the State House of Representatives. But today's not about me. Tonight is about our teachers and our kids in our public schools. And that's why I'm so grateful to now welcome tonight's guests, starting off with the president of the Arizona Education Association, Joe Thomas. We also have Marisol Garcia, who is the vice president of the Arizona Education Association, and my friend, an LD3 educator, Julie Elvick, who's now retired, but spent several years, more than 30 years in the public education classroom setting. I am so grateful to all of you. And Joe, you know, what do you think about when you see that energy that we had in 2018 and the energy that we have now here in 2020 for Prop 208? And welcome, everybody.
Well, it's great to be here tonight, Representative Cano. And I think what was amazing about 2018, and I see it happening again now, was to have educators really believe in their own voice and believe that they could have an impact on the entire system. I get to interact with educators all the time, and I have since I've been a leader in this organization, and they've always believed they could take a student from point A to point B. But in 2018, what we saw and what we continue to see is educators that believe that they can impact the system and make it better for every single student, including students that they'll never see, but they know need quality public schools.
Yeah, and Marisol, thank you for joining us. You know, we're still talking about this conversation about 2 years out because you'll recall that we did not have an opportunity to vote on the Invest in Education initiative back in 2018. It was thrown off the ballot by the Supreme Court. So what are you fired up about in this 2020 election with 27 days to go?
I'm fired up that, you know, when we were really organizing 2 years ago, we made it clear this wasn't a moment, it was a movement, and that all of our goals were going to be reached. We knew that it was going to take some time. And so our next step in this is passing 208, because we know that it will at least deal with some of the issues that children are being confronted with and our profession is being confronted with, and that is the lack of pay, small class sizes. These are all things that we are still dealing with that we desperately need to have a conversation about, and 208 is the next step.
Absolutely. And Julie, you and I met at a roundtable when I was a candidate for the State House. We just met for the first time, and we had a great conversation about the sacrifices that our teachers make to be able to provide day in and day out for our K-12 students. So I want to say thank you to you and all of you, really, because you're all educators. But Julie, you're now focused on passing Proposition 208 in this retirement world of yours. Are you having fun? What have you been up to?
Well, thank you for having me. I feel like I'm among greatness here with all your leadership. I feel like I'm not a policy person, but I do know something about being a classroom teacher. So thank you for inviting me. And I want to shout out to my friend Wes Oswald, because he kind of helped me think through the panel discussion, what I wanted to say. So thanks, Wes, for that. And I just feel like, especially right now, I admire so much my colleagues who are still out there, who are doing their best to, I know the floor feels like it's moving constantly under their feet right now. And I just feel kind of on the sidelines. I have 2 new knees, which I'm still learning to walk with. So I'm kind of on the sidelines, but I'm just so, I admire all of my colleagues so much, and just know what they need to be able to do the job well. And so that's why we've got to pass this proposition.
Yes, we do. And, I don't think that, I don't want you to fall into that trap to think that you're not contributing to this movement. Really, you have been out raising awareness, talking to everybody, and we are so grateful for you doing that. We are going to go to...
My shirt is more than a couple years old, so I'm wearing it again.
Well, and even more recent, right? I mean, here we are at the final cusp, 27 more days to make history here in Arizona, and I think it goes to demonstrate the commitment that each and every single one of you have had to ensuring where we're at today, which is passage of Proposition 208. We're going to show a quick video of what Proposition 208 is and what it's not. We'll be right back after this very short break.
They go hand in hand, restoring our economy and restoring Arizona's commitment to public schools. So let's vote yes on Prop 208. After a decade of politicians cutting education, Prop 208 helps restore that funding, reducing teacher shortages and class sizes. And those politicians, they're out of the picture, thanks to 208's strict accountability requirements on these voter-protected funds. Strong schools, a stronger economy, the strongest accountability. Vote yes on 208.
So we're going to start off with you, Joe. Can you tell us a little bit about those politicians up at the state capitol who have decimated our K-12 schools over these years, and why you're inspired by this citizen-driven initiative that ultimately, I think, is going to pass because of your leadership?
Well, you, Representative Cano, you get to work with many of the people that are down at the legislature, well, all of them, I guess. So you know how difficult it is to get people to invest in our students and in our schools. We have been listening to voters for years now around this idea of how do we bring a real cash infusion, a real investment into our schools that impacts every school district in the state, regardless of where you live. And Invest in Ed is the culmination of that. And we're looking at ending a shortage of teachers willing to work in our classrooms. Year to year, we have about 7,500 vacancies across the state, and our districts can only hire back about a fourth of those vacancies with a qualified certified teacher. And that's something every parent just assumes, if not expects, is going to be waiting for their student when their student walks in on day one of the school day. We need to make sure that we're hiring more counselors, more social workers, critically right now, nurses, that we're putting opportunities in front of our students, both to go to college and be prepared to go to college, but also to be able to work immediately upon graduation through career and technical education programs. Invest in Ed supports a pipeline of new teachers going through our university system with scholarships to help offset that too often crushing burden of student debt, mentors them for the first 3 years of their career, and rewards them with a competitive salary that will keep them here in Arizona. I am so happy that we have such strong support in our communities across the state, and so many educators rising up that are demanding that this not only be on the ballot, but that we pass it, and as you say, 27 days.
Yeah, and I think we're going to do it. And, Julie, I'm going to put you on the spot because here you have a conversation about the lack of resources that our teachers need, crumbling infrastructure. What did you see all of those years, Julie, and why are you fired up about ensuring that this passes?
Well, I mean, I feel like I heard what Joe said, and some of those people are the first ones that were cut. So we haven't had nurses. So before my 30 years teaching, I was a student in TUSD for 13 years. And so just that 43-year span of time, how it has changed and how we have put more and more on the classroom teachers and the exceptional ed people, and they have to do with less and less. And so I feel like, where did the counselors go? Where did the librarians go? Where have the PE teachers and the art teachers and music, like the inspiration for and motivation for kids to come to school? A lot of that has just kind of gradually, or you might even not say gradually, been taken away as funds have been redirected toward the private and charter schools in our state. And so I just feel like over that time, the idea of being a teacher and what it means to be and the joy of being a teacher has just gradually been taken out of it. And I feel sad for people. Huge classes, huge workloads, no or fewer support people. And so I think it's no surprise that we have a shortage, because it's a really hard thing to keep going.
Well, and I remember that conversation that we had back in 2018 with many of your colleagues. I think there were over 50 educators that day who said that they don't even keep track of the expenses that are coming out of pocket anymore, because it's just not worth it. It is expected for our teachers to do those out of pocket expenses. And Marisol, I think ultimately what we need to talk about tonight is what is on the ballot. How are we going to be funding this proposition? Because there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah, I mean, the proposition was intentionally thought through. We got support and information and surveys from community members, educators. We wanted to make sure that we could get, honestly, the most amount of money into the classroom and make it so that there was a level of equity, and that we didn't see this continually. What we've done in the past, the legislature has done, is overtax and overburden, especially our communities that are so already vulnerable. And so what this will do is it'll be an additional 3.5 surcharge after someone has filed their taxes, but as an individual, they would have to make over $250,000 or $500,000 as a couple. And so those people are the ones that would actually feel this surcharge. And unbelievably so, that money will bring in almost $960 million a year. So we're talking about people that it is less than 1% of Arizona will be even touch this. The rest of us who are hardworking, working class, educators, business owners, small business owners, this is not going to impact us. But the return will be that we will have strong communities, because their schools will become stronger. Their teachers will stay and not leave the profession. And families will know, hey, that teacher that my oldest son had will be there for my youngest son, and be able to have a level of continuity and consistency that students so desperately need.
Well, and you know that these conversations that are coming from the opposition, Marisol, are just absolutely conversations based on fear, and really the same old rhetoric where big business comes in and says, oh, this is going to be this ginormous tax hike. Arizonans can't afford it. We're not talking about the majority of Arizonans. We're talking about those high earners who have every means to be able to do this. And instead, what the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and all of their friends, including the Tucson Chamber of Commerce and the Southern Arizona Leadership Council, by the way, are doing is really putting us against each other. And they should not be doing that. It's what we've been trying to say at the state capitol, because we have $1 billion rainy day fund prior to COVID. And we continue to say we can find a way to get us to fund more for our K-12 schools. And so I get a little fired up when I hear the opposition, because it's just frustrating as heck. We are going to be showing the next commercial that you have released as part of your Yes on 208 campaign. We'll be right back.
We know politicians and lobbyists. We know politicians and lobbyists campaigning against Prop 208.
Cut. We're not going to play it.
We know politicians and lobbyists campaigning against Prop 208 aren't telling the truth.
Okay. Well, For some reason, we're just not wanting to hear that message tonight. But what we were saying, and I think trying to highlight in that video is that ultimately, look, we have to be able to say that if we want a strong economy here in Arizona, President Thomas, a strong economy, a good ability to say enough is enough. We support our schools, we support our teachers. It means voting yes on 208. And we have 27 days not only to change our state, to elect a pro-education Democratic majority in the State House of Representatives, President Thomas, but ultimately we have to remind folks that voting is the cornerstone of our democracy, and we have to ensure that people are voting and that they're voting early. So what's the message with 27 days out?
Well, it's exactly what you said. We need to make sure that people are getting their ballot, if they have an early ballot, filling it out and getting it in, and encouraging all of their family members and their friends to do the same thing. We've got to make sure that they don't just vote at the top of the ballot for president, a U.S. senator, Congress, and legislators. We got to make sure that they're listening to the Tucson Education Association, the Sunnyside Education Association, and all of our brothers and sisters in Southern Arizona to know who are the governing board candidates that they have interviewed, that they're supporting. What of those local bond and overrides that are critical to give students the opportunities they need? How do we support those? And of course, how do we make sure that every student gets an investment out of Proposition 208? And there is confusion out there, and it's unfortunate because the chamber is absolutely misleading people. And here's the bottom line, Representative Cano, and you know this. When the governor gives his State of the State speech, and you've invited us in to sit with you, and we really thank you for that. You extended one of those chairs to have an AEA officer with you, and he said very clearly there will be no new taxes on his watch. And so anyone that promises that there's something else on the horizon is misinformed. We have one shot at this. This is historic, to bring in almost $1 billion and make sure that it goes to every single classroom in this state. It gives me shivers that we have built this and been part of this momentum through bonding with our communities, our leaders, and the coalition that we have, the Invest in Ed Coalition, to make sure that we are on the ballot, that Prop 208 is in front of the voters, and then when they check yes, they're going to be changing schools permanently in the state forever.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And ultimately, the most important message is vote early, do it as soon as possible. And Julie, I want you to maybe give us some idea from the organizing perspective, because you've not only collected signatures, you have solicited the support of small businesses, especially in our legislative district here in Southern Arizona. Tell us about those conversations that you have with small business owners, because I think it's a crucial part. And look for those signs, folks. If you're driving and you're living here in Southern Arizona or even throughout the state, you'll see those Yes on 208 signs, because they're everywhere. Folks are ready for this to pass. So Julie, tell us about that organizing experience and what it's meant for you as a now retired public educator.
Wants it. I feel like there's a lot of support for 208, and like 9 out of 10 people or businesses that I had conversations with were, where do I sign? And absolutely follow the Red for Ed movement, understand where Arizona is ranked amongst other states, and understand the idea that we're investing in our future, we're investing in our young people, and we're investing in our own future. And so I feel like we've created, or organized, I guess is the word you use, but I think we've created a support for this. I mean, and because it didn't go through the first time, we've had lots of other opportunities to talk with people in other ways to kind of get people on board. So I am really hopeful, expectant that this is going to pass.
Absolutely. And Julie, why don't you give us a shout out to some of the businesses and the organizations that you know of personally that support this cause, because I think we ought to patronize them.
Wow. So I wish I had my list with me. I know Jenny at Dent Busters on Stone, and Brother John's. I know we walked that road one time. The Mercado, the shops at the Mercado and the MSA Annex. A lot of local small business people. let's see, I'm trying to think where else did we go. Up and down, like West Congress. So the Vac Man and the sewing place and
Exo
grocery
Coffee.
store. Yeah,
I drive past their video, their business all the time, and ultimately, I think it's just so exciting to see that there is so much energy and excitement around this. We are going
American Eats sponsored a lot of our events, signature collecting events. So
we have. And we have about 27 days to get more small businesses that are going to be supporting this, because I think they're out there. We're going to try to play this video one more time. I hope it works. We'll be right back.
We know politicians and lobbyists campaigning against Prop 208 aren't telling the truth. The facts.
Schools are suffering a crisis-level teacher shortage,
leaving us the largest class sizes in history.
Our students deserve a solution.
That's Prop 208.
99% of Arizonans won't pay a penny more.
And 99.9% of Prop 208 funds directly support schools and classrooms like ours.
For strong schools,
a stronger economy,
the strongest accountability.
Vote yes on 208.
It worked. You never know what's going to happen in live streaming anymore, but I'm just super grateful that we were able to get there, and we have one more to show. Marisol, what are you thinking in our last couple of minutes? I mean, not only are we also able to figure out the stark differences between what this federal presidential administration has done. I can't tell the difference between Donald Trump or Donald Ducey anymore. That's what I call him, is Donald Ducey, because I think ultimately, look, what we're asking for is not a big ask. I mean, we're talking about our future. So we're starting to wrap up. What are you thinking, Marisol?
I can't be even more excited than the next 27 days. We finally get a chance to go to the ballot and truly vote for education and impact millions and millions of lives. And not just my son's life, who's starting high school as a freshman, but my grandkids, if that ever happens, but their ability to have great educators, a very strong school system so that they will stay in Arizona and continue to build a great community where we live. So I think that's really the investment part of it. We call it invest in ed, but we're investing in our state. And so we really need to connect the dots. So, that Red for Ed movement turned into this invest in ed, and we're asking people to continue to support us and vote yes on 208.
Thank you. And Julie, we are so grateful for all of those decades of service. And I want to know what's on your mind tonight as we wrap up this conversation. Sorry, Julie, we're going to have you start all over. I'm unmuting you now.
Okay.
There you go.
It was a beautiful career. I really learned more than I taught a lot of times. And I just feel like it's perfect timing that this panel happened on this night, because I think strong public schools are the foundation for a well-informed and critically literate electorate. And so I feel like some of what's happening right now nationally and locally, that also has to come back to me. And I always felt that way. Like it's what I do in my classroom times however many of us there are that changes the way things go in our state or in our country. And so that's what I'm thinking. This is perfect timing, I think, for this panel.
I think so too, and the ability for us to be able to make a really significant impact and encouraging folks to vote early, to get out the vote, is really promising. President Thomas, you get the last word, but before you share that, we're going to share the final video that you've released in the last couple of weeks as we encourage Arizonans to vote yes on Prop 208.
Cut, cut, cut. What politicians did for a decade, cutting education funding by hundreds of millions. Now, a crisis-level teacher shortage with teacher pay nearly the lowest in the nation and class sizes the largest in history. So vote yes on Prop 208. 208 restores the cut, tackles the teacher shortage, and reduces class sizes. Because 99.9% of Prop 208 funds directly support schools and classrooms. Strong schools, a stronger economy, the strongest accountability. Vote yes on 208.
Well, Representative Cano, I really appreciate you giving us some space to have this conversation tonight. The message I would end on is every educator out there has one more important job to do outside of the amazing work they do every single day with students. And we need them to connect to investined.com. We need to have them connect to the webpage, click on Take Action, and do some phone banking. The one thing we know, what all the polls show us, is if a voter knows this question's on the ballot and they read or they have the question read to them, they support it at a high percentage. We'll win. But there are people that still don't think we're on the ballot, or they don't know that Invest in Ed is Prop 208. And that's why it's critical to have that educator voice, reach out to them, and in 1 minute, you can have that quick conversation saying, my name is Joe Thomas. I'm a social studies teacher from Mesa, and a vote yes on Prop 208 supports me and supports my students, and it supports students in your area as well. If they hear from us, they will vote yes. It is critical to get people on the phones for the next 27 days. So that's my ask. We do that. We pass this. We change the Arizona public school system forever.
And good for you for getting us to this point. I am so proud of the Arizona Education Association and all of our teachers, including Julie. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are at the cusp of an election that's going to absolutely change the direction and trajectory of this state. I think we are going to flip the chambers at the state house. We are going to be very close, if not actually flip the state senate. And in 2 years, when we have the opportunity to elect a new governor, we'll make sure that it's a pro-education governor as well. But for tonight, I want to say thank you to all of our viewers for joining us as part of this conversation. You're here on the first day of early voting. We are about to transition into what I hope will be an exciting vice presidential debate. I don't know about you all, but some folks are just turning it off. Some people are turning it on. I think we're going to see a stark difference between what Kamala Harris's vision is and what Mike Pence's vision is under the current Trump administration and what the Biden-Harris administration is going to do. And ultimately, I think about our kids. I think about what kind of progress we still have to commit to be able to change this great state and country that we love. So I want to say thank you to everybody for watching tonight, to the panelists. I am so grateful. And we look forward to joining you again next week for another live conversation. Thank you so much to our panelists. We are so grateful for you.
Thanks, Andres. Thank you, everybody.
Be safe, everyone, and vote yes on 208. Take care.
208.
Bye.